So this morning, the CEO of United Health Group, which is the parent company of United Healthcare, wrote a letter. It was published in the New York Times, and it was, for the most part, an ode to Brian Thompson, whose assignment, was really his assassination sort of revealed the fissures in our nation, which have always been palpable, but obviously now they're violently erupting. Now, the letter also went on to discuss the healthcare system itself, where he said that the system is flawed and that we should fix it. He wrote that we know that the healthcare system does not work as well as it should, and we understand people's frustration with it. No one would design a system like the one we have, and no one did. It's a patchwork. Then he went on to add that the company's mission is to help make it work better. And he says that we are willing partners with anyone, as we always have, healthcare providers, employers, patients, pharmaceutical companies. So he mentioned it all, right? The goal, he says, is to find ways to deliver high quality care at lower cost. Hey, everybody's for that, right? But clearly, it states that we are not there yet, and that he understands, they understand, his company understands that there's, and they actually share the desire to build a healthcare system that works better for everyone, and says that's the purpose of his organization. Now, this is certainly a top concern for the nation. We all know that. Now, apparently, we have the first and hopefully the only Luigi Mangione copycat. A woman down in Florida threatened a health insurer with words that he had written on those bullets. Now, at the heart of this issue, of course, though, is the poor health of Americans, folks. Take a look at this chart, because, I mean, this is absolutely mind-boggling. This is the people who are living in poor health, right? The years that people live in poor health. At the top of the list, the United States. The average person in America living with disease, 12.4 years. It's double that of Somalia. The global average is 9.6 years. Central Africa Republic at 6.7 years. Maybe have a shorter lifespan, but the bottom line is that's a lot of years to be in agony and to have to live with disease. All right, let's talk more about this. I'm going to bring in New York Post columnist Rikki Schlott, along with Independent Women's Forum CEO Heather Higgins. Heather, has been far too long. I'm glad you could join us on this. It's such an incredible topic. We could talk about it for a long time, but I thought it was interesting with the letter. So I went to the United Health Group's website. It's nowhere on there that I could find, right? So one message for the public and maybe not the same message for investors. And that right there made me feel it was sort of disingenuous.
Or maybe they're just not there yet and in terms of posting it. But the thing that's important to remember is the insurance industry overall denies 16% of claims, but United Health Group denies 32%. Right. So it's a lot of people are very unhappy about this. Almost all bankruptcies that are personal bankruptcies occur because of health care. One of the most important things that Trump did when he was leaving office in 2020 was he had an executive order on health care price transparency, which should drop health care costs by 40% if you were simply able to see prices in advance on the 90% of health care that's shoppable. The Biden administration has totally slow-walked that and undermined it at the behest of insurers and hospitals, and hopefully one of the things that Trump does is he comes and brings back transparency in healthcare for Americans, and we will not have this sort of tragedy again.
Well, Rikki, it's interesting that the young people feel so powerful about this. And one of my theories is that their parents and grandparents, they're watching them suffer.
Absolutely. And like to your point with this extended period of suffering, I think there's something very deeply demented and broken with our system where we do not prevent disease. We treat existing disease, and we allow people to get to the point where they have chronic diseases that have for years and years and years slowly developed with our lifestyles here in the United States. And I think that's a really damning feature of our healthcare system here. And I think especially for young people too, the pandemic was kind of a wake-up call. Right. Vaccine mandates got a lot of young people thinking about the healthcare industry, thinking critically about cost-benefit analysis. And so I think a lot of people's eyes were opened by that experience as well.
Yeah, I think so as well. I want to stick with President Biden here. So, of course, a lot of heat for the Hunter pardon. So he goes out and commutes 1,500 sentences, right? That's a lot. I mean, A few of them jumped out at me, but the former Dixon's, which is a really small town, the comptroller there embezzled $50 million, and she bought like show horses and stuff like that with it, right? I mean, maybe it's a nonviolent crime, but golly, Heather, that's the kind of stuff that I was shocked that this small town had $50 million, but she ripped them off. And just your thinking on that.
My thinking is that probably Hunter sold some more paintings.
Yeah, well, maybe he did. Rikki, I mean, listen, we there's a lot of stuff with criminal justice, and all presidents have questionable, pardons, but I just feel like he's trying to cover up the Hunter thing by going overboard with this.
And it's not a pardon, it's a commutation,
right.
But still.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of Americans right now, and especially young Americans, are thinking that equal justice under the law is really not been the case in the past couple months. I think this is really eyebrow-raising, and there's no excuse for that particular example, embezzling $50 million. Like, what is the possible
From a
case
small
that should
town,
be
like this is like, golly, you talk about maybe there had to be some suffering. So staying with the legal things, there's a lot of pressure on Joe Biden to push what they're called the Judges Act. They're essentially saying, hey, we need more judges in this country. Since 1990, the population has grown by 100 million people, but we have the same number of judges. So logically, that makes some sense. No, Heather?
It makes some sense, but also the reality is that a lot of what's driving this is there are certain judges who drive up the averages because they are so bad at managing their docket, and there'll be a frivolous case that goes on for a very long time, wasting business resources, wasting resources of the defendants. And so there needs to be incentives put in place to make judges manage their dockets better, and also to get more with it with technology, because they're terribly lagging. They're like 20 plus years
Well, they're the judge,
behind. Right. But you would hope that with the new crop, they'll get the hang of it. But you need to change your incentives. Otherwise, the supply is just going to expand to meet the new volume of judges.
I gotcha.
I do also think that there are very specific areas of the country that are in greater need than others, and there are areas where people are waiting years and years and years to have their cases and their day in court. So I think that's a legitimate complaint. So I hope that if this does become the case, at least it's focused and not just a general, just throw it out there everywhere. And to your point, it'll just kind of spread the issue across, and it'll be more of the same.
Right.
So a daily, something that always comes up is just how bifurcated our nation is, right? I mean, listen, Trump won with an overwhelming amount of vote. He won the popular vote, but we still have a lot of people who are at odds. So Merriam-Webster came up with the word of the year. Rikki, I'll start with you on this. Polarization. You like that one for the word of the year?
I mean, I don't like it, but I think it's true. I mean, I really think with every election cycle in recent memory, it feels like both sides are further and further apart. And even though there was a resounding victory for one side, which I do think at least there is a more healthy coalition, right. Which is refreshing for a change, I do think that it is frightening that there's been certainly a drift to the left with the Democratic Party that has alienated more and more people. But there are factions that could not be more diametrically opposed to one another, particularly when you look at young people and the male-female polarization. I mean,
the gender divide is amazing.
All these new lines and divisions. Yeah.
Last word to you with 20 seconds to go, Heather.
I disagree. I say that they totally missed the boat. Had they picked this word in 2017 or 2021, it would have made more sense. But we've got a red-pilled population, and the only ones who were surprised by the people who are still in that little MSNBC bubble.
Right. What's the word then of the year?
The word of the year is harmony.
See, she came in looking. You look harmonious too.
Thank you.
Oh,
Christmassy.
wow. Hey, ladies, that was great stuff. Really, really appreciate
Good
it.
to see
Rikki, you too, Heather. Thank you very much.